Altitude.
2, pull up.
Altitude.
Warning, 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 warning.
Caution.
2, pull it up.
Altitude.
The following aviation narrative is based on the United States Air Force Aircraft Investigation Board report obtained through a FOIA request. Additionally, public domain sources such as newspaper accounts, military history, aircraft, and hiking websites are used sparingly to fill in some omissions, add supplementary facts, and restore some redacted information as identifiers for clarity in recounting this event. Where possible, genuine photographs, scanned articles, and film footage relevant to the story are presented. However, this is not always the case, as sometimes such resources simply do not exist. Equivalent materials or altered images or film footage via AI manipulation are utilized in order to properly illustrate the incident herein.
Hello, it's Tom for the original Max Afterburner channel. I've traveled all the way down to the Pima Air and Space Museum, located on the southern edge of Tucson, Arizona. F-16A 800527 was one of the many F-16s I worked on during my 20-year career as a flight line avionics technician on the Viper for the U.S. Air Force and also the Arizona Air National Guard. Another aircraft in my squadron when 527 was still actively flying was F-16A 800486. It was the first of 3 F-16s that was lost during my time at the 162nd Fighter Wing, and it was also the only one of those mishaps involving a fatality. I've covered some of this story before in a very early model video for this channel. In this updated version, we'll be adding new details and some actual investigation photos as well, using better presentation tools than I had before today. The pilot achieved at a very young age what so many only dream of, and that is to fly a high-performance jet fighter. So the frank nature of his situation leading up to the accident as portrayed is by no means meant as disrespect. Rather, it is a salute to his courage to never give up.
Since 1991, the Arizona Air National Guard in Tucson, Arizona, also known as the 162nd, has been training pilots, beginner to advanced, from the U.S. and many foreign allied nations on the F-16 Viper fighter jet. The unit had become large enough that the 162nd was designated as a wing on October 1, 1995. However, in 1994, when the story begins, the 162nd was still named as the Tactical Fighter Group. The main training squadrons were the 148th, the 152nd, and the 195th. There is also a test center attachment. One of those foreign countries sending pilots to Arizona for pilot instruction was the Dutch from the Netherlands. The 148th trained Dutch pilots who have completed UPT, the undergraduate pilot training program, and are transitioning into the B course. A B course program curriculum teaches the essential skills of air combat maneuvering tactics, weapons delivery, teamwork, adaptability, and the high demands of flying high-performance aircraft specific to the jet fighter the pilot will be flying once they graduate. It's a rigorous setup consisting of 267 hours of academics, 30 tests, 35 simulated missions, 46 actual flight sorties, and 1 comprehensive test. Each day may consist of 1 or more of these requirements to be accomplished. Today, briefings are conducted for the many flights from the different squadrons, each with their own objectives to be accomplished using 2 to 4 jets. The various scheduled crews gear up and life support checks are completed. They head out to the flight line for pre-flight and startup ops tests prior to takeoff. One element in particular this day is a flight of 3 F-16s, known as Thumper Flight. They each take their turns launching from the runway. It's Tuesday, February 28, 1994. Thumper 1 is an F-16A single-seat model. Thumper 2 is another single-seat model. And Thumper 3 is an F-16B, the two-seat trainer version of the Viper. Their task today is to perform an air combat training maneuver 2X scenario. Their destination is the Morenci Military Operating Area about 115 miles northeast of Tucson. The mission will be terminated when one of the F-16s crashes about 5.5 miles southwest of Duncan, Arizona. After the Thumper flight forms up together, they head towards the training area away from the more densely populated regions. Thumper 1 is the lead of the group and is flown by an instructor pilot with over 3,500 hours of flight time, 1,700 of which are in the F-16, and 950 hours as an instructor. Thumper 3 is also being flown by an instructor pilot. 3 has 1,150 hours total flight time, 950 of those in the F-16, and 110 hours as an instructor. He's accompanied by a Royal Netherlands Air Force cadet in the aft seat. Together, they will act as the bandit for this exercise. Thumper 2 is flown by student pilot cadet 2nd Lieutenant Julian Beneker of the Royal Netherlands Air Force. He has over 330 hours flight time with almost 60 in the F-16. He has been training in Arizona since October 1993. During the pre-flight briefing for this mission, he is noted to have a relaxed and positive attitude. Beneker has been struggling during his training and is under increased pressure to improve his performance. In fact, this mission is a repeat of a flight he failed 3 days before because he had difficulty maintaining sight of the other aircraft during the simulated combat. Although Beneker had experienced no problems with high G-loads in previous flights and handled them well, G-induced loss of consciousness, known as G-lock, was briefed with normal emphasis as a special interest item. The flight of 3 configure for the day's workout starting with the G warm-up exercise and then begin the fight. Initially, Thumper 2 with Beneker loses sight of the bandit during the first engagement, the same problem he had experienced in the previous unsuccessful sortie of February 25th. The 3 F-16s reset to try again. They form up in an echelon formation at 21,000 feet with Thumper 3 in the lead. Thumper 1 is 6,000 feet away at Thumper 3's right 5 o'clock in an offensive position, and similarly, Thumper 2 is 6,000 feet away at Thumper 1's right 5 o'clock at an offensive support position. They are traveling at 420 knots indicated airspeed. In the next engagement, Thumper 3 initiates a defensive hard 7G right turn, and Thumper 1 engages.
Thumper 1 has a bandit. My left 11 o'clock. 1 mile, 1 is engaged.
Thumper 2 pulls up and to the right to secure a higher altitude.
Okay, Thumper 2 press!
Thumper 3 begins flying a defensive circle. The fight is now lower and to the left of Thumper 2. Beneker radio calls to engage and is cleared by Thumper 1.
I got an entry, high outside, Thumper 2.
Thumper 2, you are clear to engage.
Thumper 1 and 3 lose sight of Beneker as he is in their 6 o'clock position. However, Beneker does not engage. Thumper 3 observes Thumper 2 now southwest of the flight circle and sees Beneker begin a high G turn pointing his nose towards Thumper 3. It is now expected Beneker will perform a split S to join the fight and come up behind and below Thumper 3. Thumper 2 begins his split S. He is looking over his right shoulder, looking down at Thumper 3 and 1 looking for an entry point to join the fight. Beneker then pulls a maximum G-force turn into the nose-down vertical position of the split S. However, Thumper 2 does not pull up to level out. As Thumper 2 approaches the training floor of 14,000 feet, the instructor in Thumper 3 radios,
2, pull up.
There is no response.
Altitude. Altitude. Warning, warning.
Thumper 3 calls again 4 seconds later.
2, pull it up.
Thumper 2 still does not respond. There is no change in the flight attitude of the F-16. The aircraft is accelerating towards the ground at maximum afterburner, and there is no attempted ejection.
Terminate! God! Knock it off! Knock it off!
Immediately, Thumper 1 radios to the 162nd that they have an aircraft down. He also relays the approximate coordinates of the crash and states that there was no observed parachute or ejection by Beneker from the F-16. Thumper 1 and 3 begin coordinating a rescue effort. They make repeat passes over the impact area before returning home. The 71st Rescue Squadron from Davis Monthan Air Force Base was alerted, and they dispatched an HH-60 Pavehawk helicopter to the site at 14:25 with a flight surgeon and initial recovery party on board. They located a fatality at approximately 1600. Any miracle that Thumper 1 and 3 had missed that Beneker somehow saved himself was lost. Security forces and a contingent of the 162nd arrived to the scene to begin recovery operations. While full-time Arizona Air Guard members would always be present on site, the routine weekend drill for members of the reservist component would occur in just a few days on March 5th and 6th. Almost every member of the Weekend Warrior staff portion volunteered to help recover the wreckage, which was spread over a very wide area. The big boost in manpower would help retrieve as much as possible. It was about 3 hours to the crash site by bus from the base, so a very early meet time was necessary. We were issued gloves, a canteen with water, a box lunch, sunscreen, bug repellent, and a waterproof canvas bag to pick up aircraft items we found. While on the way, we ate the box lunches, and unit members talked amongst themselves and watched the view from the windows. One topic of discussion was the breaking news of the unexpected passing of John Candy while at a filming location the day before. The recovery camp setup had a mobile kitchen, a watering station, and tents for those who were there 24 hours a day. We were briefed by mortuary services that not much had been found so far due to the high-speed impact, but we were instructed on what clues to look for and to call out if we suspected anything. We walked shoulder to shoulder in a very long line to sweep the area, which was rocky, filled with thorny bushes, and cow pies here and there, it being ranch land. There was also a large area of the practice 20mm cartridges strewn all over from the F-16's M61 Gatling gun we had been warned about. Expectedly, some 20 Mike shells were highly damaged while others were in perfect condition. How anything could have come out of the accident pristine was beyond imagination. To prevent any injuries, we were to yell out EOD for the explosive ordnance team members to come over and collect the shells we located. Many of the fragments still had remnants of paint, helping to indicate if it was an outer fuselage piece or white, such as from the avionics compartments or landing gear bays. Many pieces displayed the yellow-green anti-corrosion synchromate paint. However, almost every piece being recovered was mostly unidentifiable to their exact location on the jet and would take lengthy examination off-site for proper recognition. One of the biggest pieces I recovered was a 2x10-inch segment that was part of an outer frame between two fuel cell panels. Another part on the field already flagged was a hydraulic reservoir pump from either the A or B system, and was the largest piece that I saw at the base of the mountain that hadn't been picked up yet, probably still awaiting disposition to whether it may have contributed to the accident or not. After hours out there, it was getting warm and the terrain was difficult to traverse. At lunchtime, the area around the base of Flat Top Mountain had been searched. Some members began to fall out or wanted to remain on the main area below the mountain. I was determined to get to the impact point. As I made my way up, I came upon the core of the engine, which was by far the largest piece of the F-16 to remain somewhat intact. All that was left was the main shaft and some of the compressor stages. Nearby, the wisps of smoke still were coming up from the ground from the post-crash fire, even days after the accident. I came upon the gears in some parts of the M61 Vulcan 20mm Gatling gun system. The gears were in very good shape, but still very hot from the fire days before. I could only hold them for a few seconds before I placed them in my recovery bag. Also nearby were fragments from the shattered cockpit glass from the canopy, and one portion was as big as a sheet of paper. I found some fabric identified by a pilot near me as part of Beneker's survival pack. After we filled our bags each time, we would take a break, placing all that we had gathered onto a wooden pallet, and a helicopter would swoop in and lift them over to an Air Force truck bed. I eventually made it to the impact crater, which was 50 feet wide and 8 feet deep. I also saw part of the aft section of a practice AIM-9 Sidewinder missile and parts of the main landing gear. An estimated 5,000 pounds of JP-8 were on board when 486 crashed, which is about 770 gallons, and had caused all the nearby landscape to burn. The smell of JP-8 fuel vapors was still in this area. Some unit members had been assigned to dig deeper down to recover anything buried. They had created 3 piles of those metal nuggets on the crater rim as they sifted piles of dirt. We then got word that the search and recovery operation was being called for the day. It was just as difficult to get down from there as it was to get up there. One of the pilots on hand sang to keep spirits up and to try and keep the mood light. His call sign Elvis fit. He was adorned with a headdress and wooden staff somewhat like Ra from the movie Platoon. Duncan is a very small town, and I guess this was the most interesting thing to happen around there in a while. As each bus made its way from the ranch land to the town, a woman sitting in front of her trailer home decided to give us all a show and lift up her top to flash us as we passed by. That day, we got back to the 162nd at 21:30. A ceremony for Lieutenant Beneker would be held the next day. Unfortunately, one additional tragedy would occur just days later. Our pilot and maintenance officer, Colonel James Fiorelli, had a heart attack while he was out on the mountain at the crash site of 486. CPR was performed and the helicopter lifted him out of there, but he did not survive. He was a very experienced pilot and well liked and respected by pilots and the maintenance troops alike. Although his call sign was Pizza, we always called him Fio. After analysis of wreckage, maintenance records, engine history, fuel analysis, medical records, life support documentation, and witness reports, the Air Force investigation concluded that Lieutenant Beneker suffered G-induced loss of consciousness, G-LOC, and did not regain consciousness in time to recover the jet. A little more than 20 years later, I returned to Flat Top Mountain to visit the memorial cross that had been erected and to look for any bits of the F-16 that may have been missed. I had completely forgotten how awful the terrain was for hiking. I brought Milo, who was amazing and did better than me traversing the area, but had I remembered how bad it was, I would not have brought him. I approached from almost due east, although the wreckage would more likely be found directly south. If you visit and approach from the south, you are likely to encounter a smaller wooden cross left by friends and family of Lieutenant Beneker. Some people have found pieces of the F-16 and have respectfully laid them at the base of this cross. I quickly abandoned looking for any wreckage. It was difficult to see the ground anyways because of the tall grass and the many volcanic boulders that littered the landscape. A quick video shot of my truck from 3/4 of the way up shows how far it is on rugged topography going towards the Air Guard Memorial Cross.